crime is committed and the police don't have a description of the suspect other than the color of his skin. What should the police do? Question everyone who's the right color? All the whites, for example, or all the blacks? Would a race roundup even be legal? Since the terror attacks, racial profiling has been at the forefront of the Homeland Security debate. Many people of Middle Eastern descent have been detained because of who they are, not what they've done. There's a precedent for that which can be traced back to a town called Oneonta, New York. In 1992, an elderly woman was attacked there, and all she could tell the police was the suspect's color. What happened next was a door-to-door dragnet based in part on a list of black students. If that seems remarkable, wait till you hear what the courts had to say about the blacklist of Oneonta. The crime was unusual for Oneonta. It's a quiet college town of just 15,000 tucked away in the Catskills. On September 4th, 1992, about 2 o'clock in the morning, in this secluded neighborhood, a burglar with a knife attacked an elderly woman. Carl Chandler was the New York State Trooper in charge of the investigation.
All she ever saw was his hand.
Black?
Yes.
Male?
Yes.
End of description?
End of description.
Nothing else?
Voice. That was it.
And the voice said, "Do as I say," kept repeating. "Do as I say."
The victim of the attack agreed to let us use her video testimony, but she asked us not to use her name.
He told me to turn over. And at that point, I thought I didn't have much to lose. So in turning over, I lurched.
The man fell, and from the crime scene pictures, he apparently cut himself and ran into the night.
It was pretty obvious that it was on his hand and was most likely on his thumb.
Chandler had little to go on, just a glimpse of a black man's hand. He called in a police dog to pick up the suspect's trail, a trail that the police said headed to the college at Oneonta. The police also started describing the man as young, with a cut on his hand. The college administration drew up a list of 78 black male students and handed it over to Chandler.
I thought, this is good. This is a good tool.
And what did you do with it?
I used it. I made up leads. I started generating leads for my investigators to locate these people and asked them if they could examine their hands for any injuries.
Did you hesitate for a moment and think, you know, we just can't lay out a dragnet for every black man at the university?
It occurred to me that I could.
Why?
Because the number was not that many.
Because it was practical.
It was practical, and it seemed to be a good lead.
Over several days, police tracked the students and questioned them, checking their hands for cuts. Ron Jennings was a junior at the college.
It's not a good feeling to know that if someone commits a crime and they happen to be black, that I automatically become a suspect.
One of the arguments that the police make is we weren't arresting these guys. They were free to go.
They're playing with words. You don't pull someone over in a car, ask them to step out their vehicle, ask them to place their hands on the hood, and they're going to feel a sense of a freedom that they can just walk away.
You don't believe the black members of the community have a point when they say that they don't like the way they were treated that week?
I don't think they do, no, sir. They were not treated poorly. They were not treated disrespectfully. If they were looking for an old man with a shaved head, I would have no objections if they came and talked to me. I guess this is where I have a problem understanding it.
It made me angry, and it made me scared.
Cheryl Champen told us the police stopped him 3 times.
I think if it had been described as a white man, they would have been looking for more personal characteristics, height, size, things of that nature. If the lady couldn't have provided that information, I believe it would have been considered a cold case.
Jamel, you weren't the only member of your family to be stopped.
No. My sister was stopped as well.
Your sister was stopped?
Yes.
The description was a black man?
Male, yes.
Is there any mistaking your sister for a man?
Not at all.
Even on my worst bad hair day, I don't look like a man.
Cheryl Champen was a recruiter for the college. She says that she was getting on a bus for New York City when the police told her and other black women that they weren't going anywhere until they showed ID.
All you had to be a suspect in this case.
Was a black man.
Or woman.
Or a woman. When you look at how myself and other women were stopped, that's when they took it to another level. That's when I feel that they stopped looking for a criminal that created this crime. They used this as an opportunity to harass us, hoping that we'd pack up and leave.
The search lasted for several days. Police officers went door to door, pulled over African Americans as they drove through town, stopped them walking down the street. Some black men were questioned again and again over days as they were spotted by different officers. Eventually, more than 65 people, including Cheryl Champen, filed suit. Their lawyer, Scott Fine, claims that the police violated their rights to equal protection and the right against unreasonable search and seizure.
What happened here is the police officer said, I'm going to ask you questions because I think you did something wrong because you're a black man. I think you did something wrong because you're a black man. You can't do that.
The question is, did the police have enough evidence to justify the dragnet?
It is unlawful in this country to stop someone based upon their race.
You have to have a better description than that.
The police don't have to be blind to race, but rather it has to be, as it's described in the cases, race plus proximity to the crime, race plus flight, running away, race plus a distinctive tattoo, race plus.
In 1999, a federal appeals court ruled that the police did have race plus in Oneonta. After all, the judges reasoned, the police said the man was young, had a cut on his hand, and the dog followed the scent to the college. The trouble is, we have obtained the original police records from the investigation, and they tell a story that is different than the one the judges heard. The police record shows the victim told the police, quote, I could only see his left hand. I'm sure the hand was black, end quote. There is no other description.
Never mentioned that he was cut, never mentioned that he was young.
Did you have any sense of his size?
None at all.
The crime scene pictures taken that day show that the victim was slightly injured in the scuffle with her attacker. But she says she never told the police that the intruder cut his hand.
I thought it was, part of his chest that he might have cut. But, I don't know.
In media accounts, the police began describing the suspect as a young black male. Why?
Yes.
Why a
That's
young?
what she described him as, having a young voice and a black hand.
That's not in the statement she signed. She describes him as black and as male, and having heard his voice, she didn't say young.
My guess would be she told me that. And when I take statements, I don't put in, I did not put in speculation and things of this nature. I only put in what she could tell me and verify.
But it became important.
Yes.
The description of him being a young black male.
Yes, sir.
And then there's the dog. Remember, the state of New York told the court that the dog headed toward the college, but the official report of the dog handler says that the scent led to this intersection and turned away from the college.
The dog handler's statement that he signed says the dog went south on East Street. And that's away from the college.
He also told me it went up Bugby Road, and he lost it on Bugby Road. This is what he told me.
That's what he told you?
Yes, sir.
Even though it's not reflected in his statement?
I don't know that I ever read his statement. I must have read it, but I didn't know that.
And neither did the federal judges, who never saw the official police records either. The reason they didn't see them has been the subject of a running battle. Attorney Scott Fine and the state of New York blame each other for not bringing those records to the attention of the Court of Appeals. But now, armed with the records, Fine is going back to the lower court to argue that the police base their dragnet on one thing alone: race.
What would have happened had the victim, in this darkened room, laying on her stomach, only seen one feature of the intruder, and that was a Star of David around the intruder's neck? The police gathered, and they said, you know what? Where do the Jews live? Why is it that something that would be so socially reprehensible if it applied to my people is good police work when it applies to the African American community? I have no answer.
In their sweep of the town, the police ultimately questioned most of Oneonta's black community. In the end, the criminal investigation went nowhere. No suspect was ever found. The case is closed, but for many, it is not forgotten.
I felt I was no longer safe in Oneonta. That I've always had that false pretense prior to this incident that, hey, if anything really happened, I can call the police. You know, if I've ever beat up by a group of whites that hate blacks, then I at least have the law on my side.
You didn't believe that?
Oh, absolutely not.
After that day?
No, I actually felt frightened. I felt when I saw a police car, I actually got out the way.
I'm not a racist. I don't have anything against black people. I don't wish to be rude or arrogant or anything else. I just want to find out who committed this crime.
Essentially what you're saying is it's okay to question every black man in Oneonta as long as you're polite about it.
Yes.
People are looking at the wrong thing. They're looking at, okay, we were stopped. We weren't detained very long. They just checked our hands and we went. That's not the real issue here. The real issue is the idea of what they did. The idea of what they did is dangerous. The idea that they generated a list and systematically looked and searched for black males, the idea of that is what's scary. Because what's next?
The victim of the Oneonta assault died this winter. In the years after the attack, she said that she thought the rights of African Americans had been violated, but she also said that her case had been forgotten in all the controversy.